Yep, no worries.
So, yeah. Can Ilka hear us there on YouTube?
You can't see it, can't we?
Oh, I don't see it on Facebook.
See it on Facebook, but not YouTube?
Oh. Yep.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Cool.
3 VB from solar.
3 VB from solar. Well, that's not what's on my screen. Is that what you're sharing, Mike?
No, that is last week's stream. I just updated it and see if that makes a difference.
Screen.
I know that you're still alive, isn't it?
Maybe we've been live for the last week.
Nah, so all good. Cool, mate. Let's get stuck in. Yeah. So what we're talking about today is the different types of systems. Just tell us about that you design here at the Off-Grid shop. So there's pre-wired DIY kits and the stuff we do in cabinets and things like that.
Yep.
So yeah. So let's start with this. We'll talk about say the 5 and the 8 kVA ones and the different types of batteries. So, mate, yeah, you want to tell us what's inside this pretty box here from Power Plus?
All right. So this cabinet that we get from Power Plus actually houses Power Plus batteries down the bottom here, and these 2 shelves internally. You'll see them later. And up the top, we have room to fit an MPPT and a Victron inverter. In this one, there is a 5 kVA.
Do you want to flick to the next screen and show us?
So this is the top half of that box inside of it. So you've got a 5 kVA multi-plus there, a 250/60 smart solar MPPT. There's a little servo down the bottom. This is our battery isolation, and of course the Lynx buzz bar.
Yeah, right, cool. So basically, is that everything required, like for an off-grid system?
Yeah, it is. Obviously, other than panels and the likes, there is a ABB in this system as well, but it's over on another shed.
Cool. So what? So 5 kVA inverter. What can the customers run off this?
A kettle and a toaster at the same time, sort of thing. They could also run all daily standard loads, lights, fans, fridge, TV, all absolutely fine.
Yeah.
The only time you really start seeing issues here is if you start, trying to cook, cook electric oven at the same time as running the kettle and whatnot. Actually, we do have that's only overnight. We do have an ABB on the shed as well. Adds another 5 kVA. So in this system, you could run all these things under electric cooking, but only of a day.
Yeah, cool. All right, let's move on to the next one. So this is what you're talking about, the AC coupled system, yeah? So
yes. So this is a customer's second-hand inverter that they supplied. So it's cover off. This is during the process of installation. So this here is a 4600 watt inverter, and then we have the 5 kVA battery inverter over here. So
yeah,
between the two of them.
That 5 kVA is like a 4,000 watt inverter, isn't it?
Yeah, 4,000 watt, 5 kVA, and this one I think it's a 5 kVA, 4600 watt.
Yep. So of a day, my batteries are full, sun's full shining. What can I turn on with this sort of system compared to the other one?
This sort of system, heaps. So yeah, run your aircon of a day. cool the house down so you can switch it off at night, sorted. Doing cooking, washing machine, dryer if you really want to branch out.
Cool. So you could run a dryer off grid from this.
Absolutely.
Yep. So as long as the sun was shining, though.
Yes, as long as the sun is shining.
All right, cool. And so, so these guys supplied their own batteries and own inverters. So there's some second-hand lead-acid batteries, aren't they?
Yes, they are.
Yep, cool. All right, done. Let's move on to the next one. So that cable plugged into the wall there, what's that doing?
This one here?
Yep.
Yep, so that's the generator inlet. So that's if you run out of power, middle of the night, plug the generator into that inlet there, and it'll charge your batteries and power your loads.
Good to go. All right, cool. Let's move to the next one. So these are easy solars. Now, what's the difference between these easy solars and like the last ones are multi-pluses? What's the difference between the multi-pluses and the easy solars?
So the Easy Solar, it contains everything in one box. So we can see we've got a color control here. So this is the monitoring unit. We scroll back to here. So the monitoring unit's a separate device. And you'll notice here the MPPT, also a separate device. Whereas in the Easy Solar, the MPPT is tucked away in under here behind all these cables at the back. Monitoring devices up there. And the multi-plus is sort of located in this section behind the monitoring. They've made it easy, also adding the circuit breakers in here, save you wiring up the switchboard, input your outputs, and an RCD to protect all the outputs. That's really the main difference with the Easy Solar.
Yeah, cool. So basically all in one box.
All in one box, yes.
So what's the, from an installation point of view, which one would you rather, like for installation point, which one would you rather do? And if it was your house, which one would you rather own?
From an installation point of view, this is a much easier unit. Only one thing to hang on the wall compared to the 4-5 and all the comms cables and stuff go between it. But if it was my house, I'd be separating it all up and building the individual components. Just so that way if something goes wrong, you can replace a single component rather than the whole unit. It's a bit easier to see.
So with these, say for example, with the MPPT failed in this, you could just replace that, not the whole unit, yeah?
In this?
Yeah.
Look, you can. It's a bit of a mission. It's going to involve your installer coming out to replace it. But yes.
Yep. All right, cool. So yeah, so if it was your money you're spending, you would go and spend the money and get the multiple devices and
multiple devices, yes.
And so that inverter in the corner there, that white box, so that's one of the ABB Femers?
Yep, it certainly is. I believe that's a 3.3 kilowatt inverter.
So that system there, they've got a 4,000 watt inverter of a day plus a 3.3 kilowatt inverter, so they can turn on to 7,300 watts all at once in the middle of the day. The sun's shining perfect.
Exactly, yes.
Yep. So what can you run off 7,300 watts?
Aircon, toaster, kettle, similar stuff to the other one. It's slightly less, like you probably wouldn't be running your oven and a bunch of things at the same time. It's an electric oven.
Yep.
Just having a couple of kilowatts less. But for the most part, 7 kilowatts will be plenty for most installations, the average household.
Cool. Done. All right, let's move on to the next one.
Right. So here we have a couple of differences. This one's using the Easy Solar and the ABB again. So this will be hooked up to some lead-acid batteries customers supplied. Similar setup, just all mounted on a board.
So that there's a DIY pre-wired one that you guys have done, programmed it all ready to go.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, and so literally the customer just hang that on their wall, and what sort of work's involved for the customer to get power out of that?
So customers still going to require to install panels on the roof, but as far as the downstairs goes, hook up the battery, switch everything on, and you'll have this 4-gang GPO will be supplying power.
So just add panels, hey?
Just add panels.
Feel like, remember those pancakes you just add water?
I certainly do.
So,
Yes.
actually, the story behind that's a very interesting story. How that came apart is the guy who made that. He ordered some containers and they turned out the wrong size, and he was a friend of our family's, and he literally increased. So what he did is actually made us put the pancake mix in the bottom, add water, shake it. You've got your shake and bake pancakes. And they all come from a bit of a mistake. So the wrong size containers turn it up. So yeah, it's interesting.
Awesome.
So yes, it's very similar. So you just buy your solar system. This one here, so the customers supply their own batteries, and then we just add their own batteries and their own panels, and we've done all the stuff, all the electrical dangerous stuff's all done, pre-tested, just plug and play. Yeah,
Exactly.
awesome. So yes, that's a bit of an idea of what those easy solars look like inside compared to the other ones. So yeah. And so with these batteries over here, so they're the Australian-made Power Plus batteries in that cabinet, aren't they?
They certainly are.
Yep.
So these batteries have they're 3.3 kilowatt hours of storage.
So what's he got? 4 in that cupboard?
4, yes.
Yeah. So what can those cupboards you can fit? How many can you fit in them?
6 in these.
6. Cool. So what does that give the customer? 6 of those? That's like almost 20 kilowatt hours, isn't it?
Yeah, maybe that.
Yeah. Cool. Done. All right. Let's move on to the next one.
All right. So
Now, these look to me very similar to the other ones, except there's a few more parts in one of them. But what's the main difference with these? Like literally, it's just the same blue box on the wall. What's the difference between this blue box and the last blue box?
So this blue box is actually an 8 kVA quattro. So whereas the other ones, you could use 4 kilowatts at all times. So 4 kilowatts at night, 4 kilowatts, during the day, straight from batteries. With these, you can use they're about 7 again, aren't they?
Consistently, yeah, continuous, yeah.
So about 7 kilowatts straight from the batteries in this instance, rather than relying on the AC coupled inverter.
Yeah.
To provide more. Cool.
Awesome.
Same above there.
So this one here, like looks at 8 kVA inverter, but it's only got 3 batteries. Like, what's the reason it's only a small amount of batteries in this one?
There's going to be an expansion in the future.
Yeah.
So this system's all set up. It's limited. It's ready to get another 6 batteries. I think they want.
Yeah. So you can put an 8 kVA inverter in and limit it. That, So what would happen if they did overload that inverter right now to the batteries? Would you damage the batteries?
No. So the batteries have a circuit breaker inside them. They'll trip to protect themselves.
Yeah.
So
Cool.
right now, this customer would be able, if they pulled the full 8 kilowatts out at once, to trip these circuit breakers. But the reality is, right now it's in a shed with not much going on in there. So
Yeah. So it's there's obviously a lot of the best thing to do is put the biggest inverter possible up to start off with, because you can always add the batteries. They're simple to add, and most people do. Like when they start their journey going off grid, they're moving into a shed. This is for lights, TVs, and fridges. And people are always really unsure. I'm not a real big fan of putting loads of battery storage in to start with. I'd rather see what you can get by with and minimize the battery storage and grow it over time. Because it's a living with less. You sort of always end up with more. What I've experienced with watching customers that start with smaller. So cool. So what's the difference? So they're the Zenergy LTOs, lithium titanate oxide.
yes, they are.
So what's the main difference between these 2 batteries? Like, my light's gonna be just as bright, my water gonna boil just as hot.
They certainly are. So the main difference, this is a lithium titanate technology. So they're a bigger battery to the amount of capacity they have, but this battery is warranted for a long time. So they're warranted for 20 years. Lithium titanate is an extremely safe battery technology. You get all the benefits of lithium, high charge rates, high discharge rates, but what you end up with is a perfectly safe battery. You get one of those cells and chuck it in the fire, and it won't explode, whereas a lithium battery, bang.
I'll link that video in the description down below to where they're doing those fire tests and setting the LTO, or trying to set the LTOs on fire, and also the LiPo 4s and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Now, saying that, like, to me, so out of these two, I know the LiPo 4. The LiPo 4 is actually the safest lithium chemistry besides an LTO on the market.
Yes, it is.
Which one of these would you put in your, say, I know you're building two houses. You got your house in town, but then you got your forever house you're going to build out in the bush.
Yep. So
out of these two, which would you put in town?
Definitely put the LiPo 4s.
Yep.
These Power Plus batteries again. So in town, I'd use them. I'm not going to be there for that long. These will last a long time, these batteries, but not as long as the energies. So keep these in town, give them a good thrashing, and then the next person to move into that house can enjoy them.
Yep.
Whereas these...
Pre-thrashed batteries ain't from Aiden.
Yeah, exactly.
If there's anything like your cars you drive, I'd be asking for a refund on my battery. Take a discount on the house.
I'm sure that'll be the case.
So, yeah, cool. Yeah, awesome. Look, for me, I'm in two minds. I think I love the technology of the LTO. I'm a big believer in that technology. The guys from Power Plus do some really cool stuff. They reckon they're going to skip that technology, get some cool stuff coming out.
Yep.
And yeah, it's a toss of a coin to me. I'd sort of like asking me which is my favorite kid. So like depends which day of the week it is.
Yeah.
I'd more to me lean towards the Power Plus. I think they've been in the industry a lot longer. I know Power Plus have been in power products for over 30 years. They've got lots of experience. And man, look, how many issues have you had with Power Plus batteries out of all the times we've sold them?
We've had a single Power Plus battery fail, and it was because something got into one of the ports, like some external body. So that's not even the battery's fault.
Yeah. So I think someone sprayed some fly spray in the communications port is what it looked like.
Yeah.
So something was making behind. So yeah, so we've had one issue in like about 4 years, almost 5 years. I think we've been doing those batteries for. And yeah, look, we've had one issue. So like it's sort of there's a lot of experience behind that. And I know Brad, the owner of the company, he comes from an off-grid world. He knows what it's like to drive out to the middle of nowhere and fix a set of batteries for a customer if something has gone wrong. So he's taken that whole philosophy in his business, and I think he really understands that it's no one wins when something goes wrong in the middle of nowhere. So
and you really see it in his work.
Yeah, totally. Like their quality of their batteries are great. So and yeah, like the Zenergy, I love that technology, and I think that company's just got a lot to learn, and I hope they do. Yeah. I hope they become a real competitor to the Power Plus in the industry because, and look, Power Plus, they got some exciting stuff coming out as well, so which is cool. So can't wait to see their new technology. So
That'd be awesome.
All right, awesome. Let's go to the next one. Done. So talk to us. So what do we got here?
So this is a wiring diagram for a 5 kVA multi-plus system. We also have a 3.3 kilowatt ABB here as well. This is just a design and layout that we build before we build a system. So this will show all the components, the circuit protection required. Yeah, it's great for visualizing what's going to be required for a job, and helps you get all the bits and pieces together to do the job.
Awesome. So if I was, if I'm looking to buy a DIY system or design a system, like, would this tell me in this picture here everything that I want?
Yes. Yeah. I don't believe there's anything missing. So, I mean, if you were to buy a DIY system, it'd probably come pre-programmed. If it's from us, it'd definitely come pre-programmed. So all this is showing is just, what wire goes where, how to hook things up.
Cool. So just two things I'll touch on. So what's the reason you use the FEMAs, the ABBs? Like, why do you prefer those to, we won't mention the other brands. Your mum said, "Aiden, if you've got nothing nice to say, don't say anything at all."
Yeah.
But look, what's one of the biggest reasons you love the FEMA inverters off grid?
I love the FEMA inverters because of how programmable they are and how responsive they are to frequency shifting.
Yeah.
So these inverters, the way an AC coupled inverter is controlled by the DC coupled inverter, is the DC coupled inverter will raise the frequency as it wants less power. So if the batteries are full and there's still heaps of power on these panels here and there's no loads going on, the battery inverter will raise its frequency to ramp the AC coupled inverter down. Now, if this doesn't happen fast enough, which we've seen in some inverters, they're a bit sloppy in how quickly they respond to the frequency changes. You can end up with excess energy being produced, and when there's excess energy and nowhere for it to go, it goes straight to the batteries. Now, when you see this, usually it's not going to immediately damage your batteries or anything, but what you'll see with lithium batteries is the voltage climbs right up, and the BMS has a paddock inside it and switches the battery off. So just having something that's completely programmable and really responsive in a system like this works wonders.
Yeah.
Blackouts in the middle of the day.
Yeah, look, that's the biggest thing for me is how fast they react. You can turn a kettle on and, immediately it's trying to handle that load and deal with that load. And another real big thing to me is there's a lot of complaints about another brand inverter on there. There's a lot of fanboys about that inverter on the marketplace.
Yep.
And every customer I know complains of how noisy they are. I know ABB, before they were Unos and Femas and things like that, they used to have a ridiculously sounding 10 kilowatt inverter. It sounded like an airplane taking off. They fixed that. They got rid of the fans, changed all the frequency and things like that. So these new Fema ones are unbelievable of and there's no fans in them, so there's no service. They just use heat sinks and things like that. So that's what I love about it. They're fast and there's no fans. They're quiet. So many people ask me, Mike, I just had this inverter installed for another company. We want to remove it and put something in. It's just too noisy. So it's insane, isn't it? So cool. So mate, before we finish up, so is there any tips you could give there for people? So designing or buying off-grid system, what's the one main tip you would do to think about and consider, when choosing an off-grid system?
Well, to start with, don't sell yourself short. Give yourself a bigger inverter, perhaps than you may initially need, because it's easier to not use the power than it is to upgrade in the future. It's a lot more costly. You're not going to get, the full money back for your original inverter. Might as well go the bigger inverter and just keep, monitor your own power consumption to suit the batteries.
Yeah, that's one thing for me. It's all I love about, putting the biggest inverter up as possible to start off with, because it is the most complicated and expensive thing to add in the future. And you can always add batteries. That's what I love about these new lithium type batteries, that you can just buy another one, put it in, you can grow in your storage. You don't have to get rid of all your batteries and start again. So big fan of it. Absolutely. Cool. All right, well, Aidan, thank you. And thanks everyone for watching and getting involved. So stay tuned. And next week, we're going to be talking about some, I know you've been having some play with some Bitcoin miners.
Yes.
So we're going to have a talk about that next week. So stay tuned for the live channel, and we'll be talking about how we turn our excess solar. Because what do you get paid at the moment? Most solar is somewhere between 8 and 20 cents per kilowatt hour if you feed it back to the grid.
Yep.
And we've been playing around with some stuff, and we've got it to, we're getting paid almost 80 cents per kilowatt hour to feed the energy. Rather than feed it back to the grid, we're turning it into blockchain currency, so which is pretty exciting. So cool.
Absolutely.
All right, mate, thank you, and we'll talk to you next week.
Cheers, mate. Talk to you then.
Thanks, Aidan.